Hi everyone, let's get straight into today's story. Boris Johnson's call for a general election rejected by MPs. Earlier, MPs backed a bill aimed at blocking a no-deal Brexit if the Prime Minister hadn't agreed a plan with the EU ahead of the 31st October deadline. This is an article from the BBC. It was published on the 4th of September 2019, and as usual, I will be leaving a link in the description box below so that you can read it for yourself. Anyway, carrying on. Mr. Johnson said the bill scuppered negotiations and the only way forward now was an election. But Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn accused the Prime Minister of playing a disingenuous game to force a no-deal Brexit. He said his party would back an election after the bill had been passed, but not before. Both the SNP and the Liberal Democrats also criticised Boris Johnson's motion as a plot to make sure the UK left the EU without a deal. But supporters of Mr. Johnson hit back at opposition members who had been calling an election for 2 years. Mr. Johnson wanted MPs to agree to an early general election on 15th of October, saying the bill, which forces him to ask for an extension to the Brexit deadline if no deal had been agreed, left him unable to negotiate a deal. He needed 2/3 of all MPs to vote in favour under the Fixed Term Parliaments Act, but the result only saw 298 vote for the motion and 56 against it. That was 136 numbers short of what he needed. Labour sources told the BBC the party abstained on the vote, although 3 MPs appeared to have voted for it and 28 against. The SNP also abstained. The bill to block a no deal passed all its stages in the Commons in one day, with the support of the most opposition parties and 21 Tory rebels as they tried to push it through ahead of Parliament being suspended next week. It will now go to the Lords for approval. Peers are debating a business motion on how to move forward with the bill, but pro-Brexit peers have laid down over 100 amendments to derail its progress. Speaking after the vote, the Prime Minister attacked Jeremy Corbyn, claiming he was the first leader of the opposition in the democratic history of that country to refuse the invitation to an election. He said he urged Jeremy Corbyn's colleagues to reflect on the unsustainability of this position overnight and in the course of the next few days. Earlier, the Labour leader said Mr. Johnson's offer of an election was a bit like an offer of an apple to Snow White from the Wicked Queen, offering the poison of a no deal. He added, "Let this bill to block a no deal pass and gain royal assent. Then we will back an election so we do not crash out." One senior MP told the BBC's political editor, Lauren Kusenberg, that Mr. Corbyn had said he would not allow Mr. Johnson to have an election before the 31st of October. The leader of the SNP in Westminster, Ian Blackford, said the debate about an early election was only going ahead because the Prime Minister had lost the vote against the bill. He added, "Mr. Johnson must accept the will of this House, accept the bill that Parliament has passed, accept your duty as Prime Minister, and go to the European Council on 17 October and negotiate the extension you have been instructed to deliver." Leader of the Liberal Democrats, Joe Swinson, praised the cross-party work on the bill as putting the national interest first, but condemned Mr. Johnson's reactions. I am intrigued that as a result of this vote, the Prime Minister's response is this somehow messes up his plan, she added. If he is seriously saying the extent of his plan was to try to bully the EU and only get a good deal by threatening to leave without a deal, it is not very well thought through. But Tory MP Nigel Evans criticised the opposition, telling the Commons they have been given an opportunity for an election and they are running scared, not just from the Prime Minister, not just from a general election, but from the people of this country who in 2016 said they wanted to leave the EU. Earlier, Shadow Brexit Secretary Sir Keir Starmer told Labour MPs the leadership would not back an election until a Brexit delay had been agreed with the EU, making the 15 October proposal impossible. But the First Minister of Scotland and a leader of the SNP, Nicola Sturgeon, tweeted that the opposition parties must seek to enforce an election after the bill becomes law before Parliament is suspended. She added, it's starting to feel like Labour doesn't want an election at all, and leaving this Prime Minister in place, knowing he'll try every trick in the book to get what he wants would be irresponsible. So what does the No Deal bill actually say? The bill says the Prime Minister will have until 19 October to either pass a deal in Parliament or get MPs to approve a No Deal Brexit. Once this deadline has been passed, he will have to request an extension to the UK's departure date to 31st January 2020. And unusually, the bill actually includes the wording of the letter he would have to write. If the EU responds by proposing a different date, the Prime Minister will have 2 days to accept that proposal. During that time, Members of Parliament, not the government, will have the opportunity to reject the EU's date. The bill also requires ministers to report to the House of Commons over the next 3 months, potentially providing more opportunities to take control of the timetable. This could all change in the next few days because MPs, Members of Parliament and peers have the power to pass amendments to any law. Meanwhile, the fallout from Number 10's decision to withdraw the party whip from 21 Tory rebels who backed the bill to block No Deal has continued to face criticism from others in the party. A group of around 80 Conservatives have written to the Prime Minister calling on him to reinstate the whip to the principled, hard-working and dedicated Members of Parliament. In a statement on behalf of One Nation caucus, former Minister and Tory MP Damien Green said, removing the whip from valued colleagues who have served their country and party with distinction damages our hopes of winning the next general election. Just see what else there is to read out to you. Bear with me. So yeah, there's nothing else there. So the Prime Minister's call for a general election has been rejected by everybody. So what do I think about this? Well, I think it's silly that people have rejected a call for a general election. I mean, Jeremy Corbyn was practically on Theresa May's back all throughout her run for an election. When Theresa May resigned, I remember Jeremy Corbyn calling for a general election. And now that it's been offered to him on a plate, he's running the opposite direction. I mean, he's not against a general election, by the way. He does want one. But he doesn't want to kind of be backed into a corner with Brexit. I mean, Brexit, no one knows what they're doing, no one knows how to deal with it, so nobody wants to take responsibility of Brexit. So that's why they're trying to pass the buck. That's why our Prime Minister is saying, okay, let's do a general election, because if you want to take the responsibility of trying to deliver Brexit, then have at it. But they are saying no, not until we block no deal, because we don't want to crash out of the EU. So what Labour is saying here is they will agree to an election if and when the bill has been passed, in order to block a no deal Brexit, because that way we don't crash out of Europe without a deal. So they're not completely against the idea of a general election. I will be making a separate video, possibly, maybe not, discussing the true reasons as to why Labour does not want a general election at this point. So keep your eyes and ears peeled out for that one. And it's just, I think there should be a general election maybe later on down the line. But it is kind of weird that Jeremy Corbyn has been after an election for 2 years, and now that it's been offered to him, he's turned his back. Kind of shows, is he a man of his principle? On the one hand, I get it, what Boris Johnson's trying to do is force a no-deal Brexit and then sort of go to the polls for a general election. He's trying to he's trying to make it difficult. He's trying to make life difficult for the opposition leaders. And obviously they don't want life to be difficult for them. They don't want him to have such an easy ride. So, in a way, it makes sense for them to say, you know what? First, pass a bill that prevents a no-deal Brexit, and then put a motion forward for a general election. Then we'll agree. So it's kind of covering all basics. Labour feels they want more time to negotiate a better deal for the UK. For the UK and for the EU. So yeah, I can see Labour's point of view in that, to be very honest. And right now, I don't think the country needs a general election. I mean, I'm not a fan of the Tory party. I would never vote for Tories, but right now we don't need a general election. What we need is more of a people's vote. Let the public decide, hey, you know what? Here is no deal, here is a deal, and either we just stay in the EU. Now people say, well, we can't stay in the EU because then you're rejecting the 2016 referendum result. Then what's the point of democracy? But you're not really rejecting democracy. You're just giving people another choice. You're saying, here's the deal. If you like it, vote for it. If you don't, the only other option is either leave without a deal, or we just stay in the EU. It's still democracy. You're not taking anything away from democracy. You're giving people the choice for something that they will have to live with for the rest of their lives. You need to involve the people at every stage in this debate, because it's us that are going to have to live with the consequences. Not the rich politicians. They're okay, they've got the money. It's you and I that are going to suffer. So yeah, I think the opposition leaders, they're right in a sense to say, we're not going to be trapped with a no-deal Brexit. Force a bill that prevents that from happening, and then we'll have a general election. So what do you guys think? Do you guys think Jeremy Corbyn is doing right by playing the long game? Do you think there should be a general election? Or do you agree with me that there should be a people's vote? I'd like to hear your thoughts. I'd like to read your thoughts, and until the next time, thank you very much. Bye-bye. Oh, before I go, sorry, they are gonna try to have a general election this coming Monday, and I'll leave a link to that story. It's Jacob Rees-Mogg that will be trying to get another motion for a general election. So I'll find that story and I'll leave a link in the description box below. Thank you very much. Bye.